Did you know many Hollywood celebrities participated in World War II? Some did so openly, while others secretly served as spies. The best part is that some of them were so effective that movies were later made about their exploits. Here are the 18 Hollywood celebrities who secretly served as spies during World War II. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was once hailed as one of the most enchanting film stars of her era. But there was far more to her than glamorous roles and striking beauty. During World War II, she co-invented a secret communication system that ended up laying the foundation for technologies we rely on today, like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Along with composer George Antheil, she created a concept called frequency hopping, which was intended to stop enemies from jamming U.S. torpedoes. They got the idea of the way player pianos could synchronize notes on a roll. The U.S. Navy initially dismissed this invention as too complicated, and it sat collecting dust for decades. But the principles behind their frequency hopping design re-emerged later, proving valuable for secure military communications and eventually for commercial wireless tech. While her invention went unnoticed by the military during the war, Hedy Lamarr still contributed to the Allied cause by using her celebrity status to sell millions of dollars in war bonds. She was also a constant presence at events boosting civilian support for the troops. It would take until 1997 for her to receive a major public acknowledgement of her work. The Electronic Frontier Foundation gave her an award for her pioneering idea. Rumor has it that when she finally found out the significance of her invention, she might have said, "It's about time," though there's no official record. She was posthumously honored by the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2014. Today, she's remembered not just as a movie star, but as a brilliant mind who helped revolutionize communication technology. The story of Hedy Lamarr shows that heroism in war can come in many forms, sometimes hidden in a brilliant brain beneath the sparkle of Hollywood stardom. Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker lived in Paris when the Nazis took the city, but she refused to let fear or oppression destroy her light. Known globally for her vibrant performances and mesmerizing stage presence, she was, in secret, working for the French resistance. To the occupying Germans, she was merely an entertainer who had taken France as her new home. They saw her dancing, singing, and socializing, all while overlooking her razor-sharp mind that picked up important intelligence wherever she went. She often attended elite parties and events where high-ranking Nazi officials and collaborators felt safe enough to talk. Baker blended in so well that these officials let secrets slip in her presence. She was said to have nearly perfect recall, which meant that as soon as she got somewhere private, she could pass along information about troop locations, supply routes, or plans of attack. She used clever methods to hide what she was carrying. Sometimes she wrote messages in invisible ink on her sheet music, or hid notes in her underwear, assuming that nobody would search a famous star that thoroughly. She also served as a courier, taking documents across borders under the guise of traveling for performances. Everywhere she went, she turned her celebrity status into a perfect excuse to gather information. When France fell, she left for Morocco, setting up base in Casablanca. From there, she continued to support the Free French forces. She brought them more intelligence, rallied support, and gave safe haven to people fleeing Nazi persecution at her estate, the Château des Milandes in the Dordogne region. Every step of the way, she risked capture, and if she had been caught, the consequences would have been dire. After the war, France decorated her with prestigious awards, including the Croix de Guerre and the Legion of Honor. In 2021, she became the first Black woman to enter the Pantheon. It was a posthumous honor that recognized her bravery and fierce spirit. Josephine Baker's life was a story of glitz and grit, a mix of feathers, sequins, hidden notes, and relentless commitment to freedom. James Stewart. James Stewart was at the peak of his acting career when the world plunged into war. Already an Oscar winner for The Philadelphia Story, He could have sat out the fighting, as many wanted to keep him in the States making morale-boosting films. Instead, he insisted on enlisting in the U.S. Army Air Forces, determined to do more than just act the role of a hero. The first time he tried to sign up, he was rejected for being underweight. He didn't give up. He ate and trained until he passed the physical requirements. Eventually, he earned his pilot's wings and served in England, flying B-24 bombers over Nazi-held territory. These missions were dangerous. Anti-aircraft flak, enemy fighters, and punishing weather conditions were routine hazards. On one Berlin raid, his squadron lost more than a dozen aircraft. The stress of sending his men into lethal situations weighed heavily on him. Stewart's responsibilities went beyond dropping bombs. He also participated in classified reconnaissance flights, quietly scouting enemy territory before major Allied offensives. Many of those details remain locked away in military archives. But there's enough evidence to suggest Stewart's direct input influenced critical strategic decisions. He climbed the ranks, ending up as a squadron commander responsible for dozens of aircraft and hundreds of men. When he came home, he struggled to return to normal life. His first film afterward, It's a Wonderful Life, radiated a darker edge beneath its sentimental surface. Those close to him noticed he wasn't the carefree person he'd been before the war. His experiences changed him forever, leaving him reluctant to talk about what he'd seen. Officially, he racked up 20 combat missions, earning the Distinguished Flying Cross. He stayed in the Air Force Reserves and rose to Brigadier General, making him one of the highest-ranking Hollywood actors in the military. James Stewart's story reminds us that some who played heroes on screen were heroes in real life too. Sterling Hayden. Sterling Hayden made his name in Hollywood with his striking looks and commanding presence. But he had a secret role that was much more daring than any script he ever got. By 1941, he was working for the OSS under a false name, John Hamilton. His sailing skills were top-notch, and the Allies needed people who could navigate tricky waters without attracting too much attention. Hayden's assignments included sneaking weapons and supplies to Yugoslav partisans resisting Nazi occupation. He teamed up with Josip Broz Tito's guerrilla fighters, who were the largest and most effective resistance group in Nazi-occupied Europe. Hayden's sailing background proved invaluable. He was known to guide small, unassuming boats packed with weaponry, medical supplies, and sometimes even Allied operatives, past German patrols under the cover of darkness. Details of these missions vary, and official records can be hard to find. One story suggests he landed on an island only to be caught in a sudden German attack, leading to a frantic escape. Whether the specifics of that are entirely accurate or have been embellished over time, it's clear that he frequently risked his life. His bond with the partisans left him deeply affected. After the war, he wrestled with the emptiness he felt returning to Hollywood's make-believe heroics. For a short period, he joined the American Communist Party, which caused him serious trouble when Senator McCarthy's anti-communist wave hit Hollywood. Despite the controversy, he was awarded the Silver Star in 1946 for his bravery. In interviews, he often spoke about how real experiences made acting feel trivial by comparison. Sterling Hayden was many things: an actor, a spy, a free-spirited adventurer. His life story goes far beyond the big screen, weaving into the broader tale of courage and sacrifice during one of the world's darkest times. Douglas Fairbanks, Jr. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. grew up surrounded by Hollywood glamour. His father was legendary silent film star Douglas Fairbanks. But when World War II erupted, Fairbanks Jr. discovered a higher calling than acting. He joined the U.S. Navy and rose through the ranks, eventually coordinating with the British on clandestine missions. Assigned to Lord Mountbatten's staff, he helped plan and conduct commando operations in the Mediterranean and along the French coastline. Though not always labeled espionage in the strictest sense, Fairbanks Jr.'s involvement included behind-the-lines reconnaissance, careful coordination with Allied intelligence networks, and occasional deception tactics designed to mislead Axis forces. Much of his work remained largely unpublicized, ensuring that even avid fans of his films had little idea of how frequently he placed himself in harm's way. After the war, he returned to show business, but the sense of purpose he found in military service remained a defining chapter of his life. David Niven. David Niven was a charming British actor whose wit and debonair style won him international acclaim. He began his career in Hollywood, but when World War II started, he raced back to Britain to join the army. At first, he was part of an ordinary infantry unit, but he later transferred to the secretive Phantom reconnaissance unit. This elite group gathered real-time intelligence behind enemy lines, tracked German troop movements, and relayed vital information to Allied command. Although Niven rarely spoke publicly about this shadowy work, the demands of Phantom meant operating in hazardous conditions, often with minimal backup. He also lent his star power to recruiting efforts and appeared in morale-boosting films for fellow soldiers. After the war, he went back to acting, taking on roles that sometimes paralleled his real-life heroism, though the details of his clandestine missions largely stayed out of the spotlight. Niven's wartime experiences shaped the understated steel beneath his famously easygoing screen persona. John le Carré, David Cornwell. While John le Carré's name is synonymous with riveting espionage novels, the real man behind the pen, David Cornwell, served in British intelligence during the post-2020 era. After briefly working for MI5, Britain's domestic security agency, he moved to MI6, the Secret Intelligence Service, during the tense early years of the Cold War. From interrogating defectors to running covert operations behind the Iron Curtain, Cornwell got first-hand experience of the gray, morally complex world that would later define his writing. He used false identities, drafted reports on political subversion, and maintained contacts across Europe. Eventually, he channeled these experiences into novels like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold and the famous George Smiley series. These works introduced readers to the somber and realistic side of spycraft, far removed from the glitz of Hollywood or the flashy gadgets of James Bond. John le Carré's stories remain beloved classics of the genre, but their resonance comes from Cornwell's own time spent in the shadows, a testament to how real espionage can ignite the world's imagination. Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming might not be a Hollywood star, but he certainly qualifies as a celebrity, given that he created one of the most famous characters in popular culture, James Bond. Fleming's wartime service in British naval intelligence laid the foundation for the spy stories that would captivate the world. He worked under Admiral John Godfrey, considered a major figure in shaping Britain's strategy against Germany. Fleming's job involved planning operations that ranged from reconnaissance missions to deception plans meant to confuse the enemy. One of Fleming's most notable accomplishments was his role in Operation Mincemeat, a deceptive plan that convinced the Nazis the Allies would invade Greece instead of Sicily. While the idea came from other officers, Fleming contributed to the broad intelligence strategies that supported such missions. On top of his planning duties, Fleming formed a commando unit known as 30 Assault Unit, tasked with going into war zones to seize enemy documents before they could be destroyed or removed. Nicknamed Fleming's Red Indians, they ventured into dangerous frontline situations, tracking down crucial files that could reveal German capabilities. These experiences later surfaced in Fleming's Bond novels, woven into the fictional adventures of a suave secret agent with a license to kill. Characters like M were partly inspired by Admiral Godfrey, and Fleming's own knowledge of espionage gave the stories a realistic underpinning that fascinated readers. After the war, Fleming took up writing full-time, publishing Casino Royale in 1953. The success of his novels and the subsequent films turned him into a household name, overshadowing his earlier clandestine work. Still, the imprint of his real intelligence background is unmistakable in every Bond tale. Fleming's life is a testament to how genuine spycraft can inspire lasting pop culture legends. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo was a Swedish-born star recognized worldwide for her stunning looks and silent film performances. But there are long-standing rumors that her disdain for the Nazis led her to assist the Allies in clandestine ways. Reports from former intelligence officials suggest she served as a courier and informant for British intelligence, though absolute proof remains elusive. Some of her acquaintances later claimed that she passed along sensitive information gleaned from her social circle, which included influential figures in multiple countries. What sparked her deep opposition to the Nazis isn't entirely clear. Some say she had strong moral convictions, while others think she might have lost close friends to the regime's brutality. One story suggests British intelligence asked her to use her stardom as an excuse to travel across Europe, where she supposedly met individuals who were unwittingly revealing useful clues. Whether she carried microfilm, coded documents, or even just verbal updates is unknown. Garbo was famously private, rarely giving interviews, and this air of mystery only fueled speculation. If she truly worked undercover, her reticence would have been an asset. Even if some details of her espionage remain unproven, many historians point out that Garbo's well-documented hostility toward Hitler's government suggests she would have eagerly cooperated with the Allies if given the chance. After the war, she stepped away from the spotlight almost entirely. In the decades that followed, her name still popped up whenever old intelligence stories were revealed. Although official records are scarce and conflicting tales swirl around, it's widely believed that the great Garbo used her carefully guarded privacy to support a secret cause. Her life offers a tantalizing glimpse of how powerful a single celebrity could be in the quiet corridors of wartime intelligence. Leslie Howard. Leslie Howard was an English actor best known for roles like Ashley Wilkes in Gone with the Wind. But his public persona as a gentle leading man belied a fierce and cunning involvement in propaganda and, possibly, espionage. During the war, he produced, directed, and acted in patriotic films that boosted British morale. He also did radio broadcasts that urged people to stand against fascism. Yet, there are rumors he did more than just make pro-British films. Some accounts suggest Howard traveled around Europe on missions that weren't purely for movie-making. He's said to have used these trips to gather information and encourage resistance in areas that the Nazis controlled. There's a theory that his high profile and charm made him an effective messenger for British intelligence. The biggest mystery surrounds the plane crash that killed him in 1943. The aircraft was shot down by the Luftwaffe over the Bay of Biscay, leading to multiple conspiracy theories. One speculation is that the Nazis targeted the plane specifically because they suspected Howard was involved in espionage. Others believe they thought Winston Churchill was on board. The truth remains murky, with historical documents failing to conclusively prove either theory. His cinematic contributions were significant, but his war-related efforts may have been just as important. Howard's influence as a cultural figure helped shape Allied propaganda, and perhaps even covert intelligence operations. The combination of his untimely death and the swirl of secrecy around it has turned him into a fascinating figure in wartime lore. Leslie Howard stands as a reminder that even famous movie stars could be caught in the life and death struggle of espionage, where a single flight could be the difference between success and disaster. Noel Coward. Noel Coward gained fame as a playwright and performer, known for witty dialogue and polished charm. But his role during the war was more covert than most people realized. Working for British intelligence, Coward leveraged his social connections and popularity to gather information. He was part of the Z Organization, a small, secret group led by Colonel Claude Dancy of MI6. Traveling between the United States and the Caribbean under the pretense of entertainment tours, Coward would meet important political figures, wealthy individuals, and even potential Nazi sympathizers. He was so well-liked that people at these gatherings opened up to him without suspicion. Later, Coward would quietly pass that information along to British intelligence. Even Winston Churchill supposedly recognized Coward's knack for espionage, though there's a story that the Prime Minister worried Coward's fame might blow his cover. In any case, Coward continued writing plays, making appearances, and even recording propaganda materials aimed at weakening the enemy's resolve. An unconfirmed rumor suggests the Nazis tried to recruit him to make broadcasts praising Hitler, not realizing where his loyalty lay. Coward later joked about how ridiculous it would have been if he had accepted such a role. After the war, his intelligence work stayed under wraps for decades. When he was finally knighted in 1970, it was officially for his contributions to drama. The public didn't know the full story about his service to British intelligence until much later. Today, he's remembered for witty plays like Private Lives. But those who dig deeper find a man who was just as brilliant at passing secrets as he was at writing one-liners. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich was already a global star in 1944, known for her haunting voice and captivating screen presence. During the war, though, she used those same talents to fight against the Nazi regime she despised. She recorded German-language songs that were broadcast to German soldiers, and these recordings weren't just harmless music. They were part of psychological warfare, designed to break the enemy's spirit. German troops at the front lines would hear her familiar voice, singing tunes that reminded them of home, especially her version of Lily Marlene. Instead of boosting morale, it made them homesick and doubtful about what they were fighting for. She worked closely with the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, which came before the CIA. Her job involved recording tracks in German that played repeatedly over Axis radio frequencies. The goal was to sow unease among the troops, and according to what is now the International Spy Museum, Dietrich's broadcasts were pretty effective. The idea was simple. If you remind soldiers of the comfort and peace they left behind, maybe they'd question if the war was worth it. Beyond these propaganda broadcasts, Dietrich put her life on the line by performing for Allied troops in the thick of the action. The Imperial War Museums keep documents showing that she was often only a few miles from active battle zones, entertaining soldiers who desperately needed a break. She was a magnet for attention and admiration, but there are hints in various accounts that she used her travels for more than just performing. Some rumors say she carried secret messages or small items for resistance fighters in occupied Europe, though solid proof is slim. Still, these stories persist, making people believe she might have done far more behind the scenes than most people knew. Her dedication to the cause did not go unnoticed. In 1947, she was awarded the U.S. Army's Medal of Freedom for her service. That was one of the highest honors for a civilian who helped in the war effort. Yet, her stance against the Nazis came at a price. Many in her home country of Germany called her a traitor. She famously said, "I was born a German, and I am opposed to Hitler and his regime," as if to justify her decision. She refused to let the criticism stop her. Even after the war, her unwavering opposition to fascism remained clear. Marlene Dietrich wasn't just a glamorous star. She was a fighter on the cultural battlefield, using her fame and voice to pierce through Nazi propaganda and encourage doubt among enemy troops. Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee became world-famous decades later for playing Saruman in The Lord of the Rings and Count Dooku in Star Wars. But his real-life past in World War II might be even more incredible than any fantasy role. He served in the Royal Air Force at first, but due to problems with his eyesight, he never actually piloted a plane in combat. Instead, Lee shifted into intelligence work, joining the Special Operations Executive, or some similarly secret branch. Records differ, partly because many World War II documents remain classified or lost. Whatever his exact branch, it's generally accepted that Lee operated behind enemy lines in North Africa, and possibly in other parts of Europe. He allegedly took part in missions that targeted the infiltration or sabotage of Axis forces. Lee himself often dodged questions about the specifics, hinting that he was bound by secrecy. In interviews, he made cryptic references to missions so clandestine he couldn't possibly share them. After the war, Christopher Lee embarked on an acting career that eventually made him a global icon. Still, that question about his Secret Service days lingered. He once told a director on the set of The Lord of the Rings that he knew exactly how a man should react when stabbed in the back, implying he'd witnessed acts of violence at close range. Whether he was joking or not, it added to his mystique. Although the details of his service might forever remain hidden, Lee's life story shows how extraordinary the backgrounds of some famous performers can be. He transitioned seamlessly from top-secret missions to cinematic stardom, carrying that aura of real-life danger into many of the roles he later performed. Cary Grant. Cary Grant is often remembered as the ultimate suave leading man in classic Hollywood films. During World War II, he used his fame and position in the film industry in ways that sometimes blurred the line between patriotism and covert action. Grant was British-born, but became an American citizen in 1942. He openly supported the Allied war effort, selling war bonds and making official appearances. However, rumors suggest that he also served as an informal informant for British intelligence. One persistent story claims that Grant kept tabs on fellow Hollywood personalities suspected of having pro-Nazi sympathies. He would report back to British authorities about their activities or statements. Given his popularity, Grant had access to circles where certain influential people might let their guard down. However, the exact depth of his involvement is unknown, and many official records that would confirm or refute this remain sealed or missing. Grant's ties to British intelligence may have stemmed from his personal network. Allegedly, he was introduced to intelligence figures through mutual friends in high society, and they saw in him a discreet and trustworthy source. Even if he was never a formal agent, it appears that Cary Grant's name came up in the margins of intelligence files from time to time. After the war, Grant stayed tight-lipped about these matters, focusing on his film career and private life. Yet many in Hollywood circles believed he contributed more to the Allied cause than the public realized. Whether he was an active spy or simply providing friendly tips, Cary Grant displayed a devotion to the war effort that went beyond typical celebrity contributions. Moe Berg. Moe Berg was an unassuming figure in Major League Baseball, a catcher who never reached the same fame as some other players. But secretly, he was involved in high-stakes intelligence work that could have changed the course of history. By 1944, he was working for the OSS. His mission was to figure out whether Nazi Germany was close to building an atomic bomb. If they were on the verge, he had orders to take out the scientist leading the program, Werner Heisenberg. In December 1944, Berg attended one of Heisenberg's lectures in Zurich, armed with a pistol hidden under his coat. Sitting quietly, he listened for any clues that the Germans were advanced in their nuclear research. If he heard even a hint that they were near success, he was prepared to shoot Heisenberg right then and there. But the lecture gave him the impression that the Germans weren't close to developing a functional nuclear weapon. So, he chose not to pull the trigger. Later, Berg's report reassured American officials that Germany wasn't an immediate nuclear threat. Berg's post-war activities remain murky. Some believe he continued to do intelligence work during the early days of the Cold War, though exact details stay classified. To many people, Berg was a low-key athlete whose baseball career spanned a modest 15 seasons. But his time in espionage circles was filled with risk and secrecy. He is still remembered as the brainy catcher, who quietly played a pivotal role in one of the most sensitive spy missions of World War II. His life story stands out because it combined the ordinary world of sports with the extraordinary demands of clandestine warfare, where a single decision could shift global events.